guys about the school tournament. I'm so excited. So what are we gonna wear? Like, I cannot wait.
Goodness, I've been waiting for this whole thing the whole year. I think I'm going to wear that dress, like, you know, that cleavage one, that sexy one. That nice.
No, you can't wear that dress. You already know what happened to Maria last week after wearing that other shirt of hers.
What happened?
No,
I don't get it. What's wrong with wearing such clothes? I mean, you're still covering your body. Just a little bit of skin showing. What's wrong with it?
It's not wrong, but you already know how it is out here. Boys, no.
I don't even have to worry about anything because I know my outfit is going to be the one. Anyways, guys, I have to go. See you guys later.
Bye!
Tell us when we go home.
Hey, sister.
Excuse me? What do you want?
I want you.
To do what with me?
I want to talk to you.
Well, I do not have time to talk to strangers.
Hey, ugly man, go man.
Go what?
Hey, do yourself.
Ugly Bull FC always walk alone.
Who's gonna die?
Now this begs the question, do the other boys not see that this behavior is wrong? Is this how our girls are supposed to be treated?
Good day everyone, my name is Helena Shikamber and I will be the presenter for today's discussion. As part of our extracurricular activities here in our secondary school, we decided to take initiative and do our part to help stop gender-based violence and also sensitize the nation on this concerning issue. It has been long acknowledged that Namibia has a high rate of gender-based violence, and the latest cases are yet another reminder of how these cases are becoming common in Namibia. For example, the gang rape of a schoolgirl and the rape of a 16-year-old and the violent rape of an 80-year-old woman. The victims of gender-based violence have had their lives irreversibly changed, and this is a true reflection of reality and that something needs to be done. To introduce my panel, starting from my far right, we have Philip Hamkonde, followed by Ialo Peya, and Wilbert Amkete, and Justina Ilonga. And from my far left, Fina Shimbu, Herbert Chiwiu, Esther Kawa, and Vataleni Stefanes. And across me, we have Vaino Shipombo. Welcome to the OTS. Before we start, let's get a deeper understanding of our topic of discussion. So, Miss Esther, can you please brief us on what gender-based violence is?
Okay, so I'll start now.
Well, the funny thing is, a lot of people think gender-based violence is an alien. But the truth is, it's not something new. It's something we all know. It's something we've seen. It's something we've grown up seeing in our homes, in our neighborhoods, and communities. And this brings me back to the definition or the definition or meaning of gender-based violence. Well, the most common interpretation of gender-based violence is primarily men's violence against women and girls. Well, one can characterize an action as gender-based violence by evaluating. So we have different types of gender-based violences. The first one is physical. Physical refers to the intentional use or force of force on someone. So this varies from maybe pinching, punching, and beating. Then we move on to sexual violence. Sexual violence refers to the forcing or intimidating the victim to involve in sexual acts that they are not really in agreement with, without mutual agreement, such as rape, fondling, groping. And then we move on to the third one, which is economic. And then for economic it refers to the depriving someone of their money or depriving them of becoming financially successful. The fourth one is emotional violence. Emotional violence refers to verbal humiliation. So verbal humiliation comes in different forms. It could be name calling, it could be labeling someone, it could be a lot of things as long as verbal humiliation is involved. And these different types of violences happen, they can be interpersonal. Interpersonal is when it happens between two people that are friends more than acquaintances, maybe a mother and a son or a father and a woman or wife. We have one that happens between acquaintances, someone you don't really know. That's non-personal. So it could be between me and a stranger or maybe anyone I don't know. Yeah.
Now, let's get to know the numbers. Heather, over the years, has the rate of gender-based violence increased or decreased?
Well, yes, the rate of GBV has increased over the years, whereby now the police under the Gender-Based Violence Protection Unit have now recorded 200 cases per month. And now multiply that by the number of months and you will get 2,400 cases per annum. And now, mind you that these are reported cases, and and think of the cases that are happening like in silence, those cases that are not happening like with us knowing them. And these cases are usually coming from intimate partners and interpersonal partners, like my fellow colleague here said. And yeah.
So, people all over the country are protesting against gender-based violence as a way to raise awareness. Do you think the protests are effective?
Well, the protests that are happening around the world and in Namibia are a sign that people do know what is happening. But then again, you cannot fight violence with violence. Raising posters and being all, out there, but you are letting the people know that you know, but what is happening in protest is just violence. The police comes, then it gets all messy and all that. So I don't really think that protests are effective enough.
The cases of gender-based violence that are reported are usually against women. And people on social media have started to talk about how males are being left out or neglected. Do you think a man can also be a victim of gender-based violence?
Okay, thank you. So, thank you very much for the opportunity. So, there is a general consensus that both men and women are victims of gender-based violence. However, data shows that women are most often the victims of violence. This makes it very easy for people to believe that this atrocity is only perpetrated on women. This negative stigma is brought on by our society's beliefs that believe that if a man cries or reports of being molested by a woman, is taken as a coward. So this causes men to enjoy this trauma in silence, and this can destroy them physically, psychologically, and socially. So gender-based violence is a risk for both men and women.
We often hear of cases whereby people say they were sent back or the cases take a long time to resolve. So, Wilbur, do you think the system has failed?
Thank you for the question. If we look at the number of cases of GBV that were handed in or that were reported, and then we look at the number of cases that were solved, we can come to the conclusion that the system is clearly failing, because our justice system works very slowly. It takes years and years to solve certain cases. Now, how can you win a fight against GBV if our justice system is failing us? Also talk about schools with non-promotional subjects like life skills. The teachers should tackle these issues, to educate these youth and to prevent them from making the same mistakes as the forefathers did. And then finally, the protection order is failing in Namibia because the police delays responding to certain protection orders. Now, a lady sets in a protection order, and then that same lady ends up being abused or killed by the same perpetrator. Now, what's the use of these protection orders if these people are not end up not being protected?
So, having heard that the system has failed, do you think society has also failed?
Society in general is an aggregate of people living in a more or less ordered community. The Namibian society comprises of two parts. We have the relevant authorities, which is made up of the ombudsman, the police, but it's mostly made up of the older Namibian citizens. Then we have the youth. They're becoming more exposed to the emotional, the psychological, and the physical effects that GBV has on the victims, but not only the victims, but also the development of the country in general. As we speak right now, there are ongoing marches in different regions in our country, namely Oshana region, Komasi region, and Erongo region. Well, these marches have been caused by the lack of the relevant authorities to tackle issues related to gender-based violence. Well, what I'm trying to say is that if the people at the top of or make up the pillar of the society, which is the relevant authorities or the older Namibian citizens, if they cannot tackle this, this causes the youth or the other part of society to take action against this. And then this results in activities such as the anti-gender-based violence march. So what I'm trying to say is that the Namibian society, part of the Namibian society, which is the older Namibian society, has failed us. They have failed us, and then this has caused the youth to retaliate.
So sometimes we hear of cases whereby people go like, she expected it, she deserved it, she had it coming. Do you ever think a person deserves to be assaulted?
That's a very good question. Gender-based violence is a profound and widespread problem throughout the whole Namibia as we speak, impacting on almost every aspect of life. Gender-based violence, which disproportionately affects women and girls, is systematic and deeply entrenched in the cultures, institutions, and traditions in Namibia. Now, violence is a physical and mental thing. When someone, let's say a young girl or boy, is mistreated at a young and tender age, it affects their futures and has a huge impact on who they become in future society. This is commonly triggered by one's way of thinking, their mindset. Because one's way of thinking influences their decision on whether to resort to violence or not, and nobody ever deserves to suffer under the hand of another human being.
Okay, we know what gender-based violence is. We know that the system has failed, and we know the numbers. But how can we help the victims of gender-based violence?
It is the duty of every Namibian citizen to play a role in fighting against GBV. We cannot say nothing is being done when we as Namibian citizens sit back and watch what is happening to these citizens. The Ministry of Health and Social Services could do more in strengthening the health sector responsible for gender-based violence. They could at least strengthen their rehabilitation and treatment of alcohol and drug abusers, because these are the people that contribute to gender-based violence. Elimination of gender-based violence would be effective through combination of mass education and effective implementations of the policies and laws of our country, which we already have. Traumatizing events may be suppressed
and never brought to light. So we as a society can empower the victims to share their stories. We can educate the society. We can educate the society on the scope of the problem, and we can mobilize communities to create an evidence-based strategies for prevention and victim support.
So growing up, I've heard men say this is what we are taught, this is how it has been from generation to generation. So Justina, do you think culture contributes to gender-based violence?
Well, we all know that culture is something that is learned from one person to another, and it's not something inherited. I mean, it's not something in our genes. So actually, when children are growing up in different homes with different traditions and cultural beliefs, they actually pick up some certain behaviors, and then they develop this into what we call culture. So now, for example, I can give you the fact that men in some houses, you'll find a man having a big chair, probably the most expensive chair in the house, but it's only him that sits on that chair, nobody but him. So when the children are seeing this kind of behavior, they actually come up with this idea in their head that men have some kind of power over women. And this is something that leads to gender-based violence, because then women will think that men can do anything they want to them.
Hello everyone, my name is Martha Johannes. Gender-based violence is definitely an elephant in the room. There's no denying that Namibia faces gender-based violence. There's no denying that women live in fear for their lives. It is invicted by the common hashtag known as #AmINext. The threat that hangs in the air when a woman walks past a group of men, it is not made up. It's no fantasy or an unfounded fear. The sense of that threat is real, because the outcome of that sense is often very real too. It is not okay, it's never okay, and we all have the duty to stand against it and end it. Earlier this year, the Namibian police force reported that during the 18 months ended in June 2020, 1,604 rape cases were recorded. Translated, these statistics paint the horrifying image that for 540 days between January 2019 and June 2020, three rape cases were reported to the police every day. The oppression in women in the 21st century is perhaps more multifaceted and developed than it has been historically. After gaining independence in 1990, the Namibia government passed out laws protecting the rights of women against various forms of oppression. With its history traced and rooted in the old and strong patriarchal norms, beliefs, and practices, the notion that men are superior than women still affects women in the modern world. We have to eradicate femicide. But we can't change people. It has to come from them. And one thing that motivates the desire for change is recognizing that behavior has consequences. Lastly, I would like to end this with a quote that says, "The world isn't a bad place because of the bad people in it, but because of the silence of the good people. Let us speak up." Thank you.